What's going on? What's going on, friends and family? Just hanging out here on Friday, April 13th, 2018. We're going to talk some Bitcoin. I'm here with the one and only, the infamous, the famous Big Chonis. How we doing, bud? What's going on?
Hey, Cheds. How are you this afternoon?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. So, what's your feeling? Where are we at? Just give us the basics. What are we looking at?
What are we looking at? We're looking at some pretty amazing price action over the past, day or so. On our last show, we were really looking at this sideways action. Seemed like it was endless.
Sure.
Trying to figure out like what's the move here. We were basically talking about this bearish channel we were in. Rising wedge, falling through it bearishly, putting another rising wedge. We were coming to some sort of a trend line somewhere around 7,000, and we were assuming that at some point there we would see some definitive direction the market was going to take us. And then it did something. It was kind of nasty on that hourly chart there. It just really shows exactly. It fell through that rising wedge there, and you thought, oh, it's a bearish break. Here we go. We're going to retest mid-sixes.
Is that back on the 9th that you're referring to?
The 12th, like on the 12th, the morning of the 12th.
Oh, right, that one. Yeah, I was looking through on the 9th. It kind of did the same thing, right?
Well, it did. But this one was interesting because it basically rode the top of that wedge, fell through it almost.
Yep.
And from that moment there, that was kind of that thought, oh, here we go. And I bet you some more shorts actually loaded up at that moment.
Sure.
Had a complete reversal. And something that was basically very interesting here is when it reversed there, took a couple hours, basically around, 6,800 to start to climb to about 7,000. And once basically it peaked its head over 7,000, we have never seen 1 hour volume like this ever.
Yeah, man, look at that. This is like crazy volume. This is a short squeeze, right?
Well, I read that this was the most volume ever in Bitcoin history in a 1 hour candle.
Okay, that's kind of interesting.
Basically, it took about 45 minutes to go from 7,000 to 8,000 on Bitcoin, which is astronomical. If you think about how long we've been in this 6 to low 7,000 range for days here, and then just to have that kind of epic move that quickly, how did that happen? What were the things that basically led to that catalyst that rocketed ship Bitcoin? And
what was the catalyst? I mean, it just moved. Do we know why it moved? What was the catalyst?
Well, there were several things. Obviously, we talk about sideways action. Well, sideways action in this case turned out to basically be confirming a bottom around, for now at least, in the 6,500 area, and then testing that a couple times, but putting in a moderately higher low every time there. And then basically you had a situation there where, as we were approaching that apex there of the trend line sideways, something was going to happen. And because the market sentiment was so bearish and the shorts were basically showing that was what their sentiment was as well, it would take, and I did a tweet about this, somebody with a lot of cash on the sidelines to rip this thing, and it would cause all these shorts to liquidate because the shorts are bought mostly on margin accounts, so they're borrowing extra money basically to do that. So if the Bitcoin price hits a certain point, they're forced to shorts to cover that, and then they have to put money in there. So a lot of that buying pressure was that happening, where you literally take the lid off a pressure cooker when you liquidate these shorts that had their boot on the price of Bitcoin for all these days here. Once that happens, it can shoot up like a bottle rocket. And that's exactly what we saw. What's interesting is to see this strong continuation where you were expecting on a big move like that, way out of all of our indicators, basically showing overbought here on so many ways, pegged off, and yet we still keep trucking higher and higher and higher. There's something to that. There's basically showing you that there's a lot of Momo right now, a lot of money flow, a lot of positive feelings right now about Bitcoin, and there's a lot very good happening in this price action.
Okay.
But there are some things to be concerned about as well.
Well, that's brilliant. So there's a lot to unpack from what you just said. Just right now, what are we in? I don't know. Are we forming like an ascending triangle, perhaps? Continuation pattern on the like a 4 hour? What do you think about that?
Let's see, ascending. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing here. What we've basically seen is because of that epic volume, a lot of our indicators got pegged off. So
Yeah.
we really have to kind of
Yeah,
expand.
RSI, right? RSI 75
Right. So
on the
we kind
four
of have to
hour.
expand our horizon here of what we have seen
Mm-hmm.
recently as topped off indicators
Okay.
and assume that they can ride in these areas for extended periods of time now based
So,
on this move here. So we're going to see a lot of these indicators topped off. They can for quite a while as long as Bitcoin holds in this area here. Now, there will be a correction. It's inevitable.
yeah.
This is a very huge move, huge removes, all moves
Mm-hmm.
basically have a correction test. So that will happen.
Yep.
The extent of that is still really up for debate. Now that it's had this moves, a lot of resistances are now becoming support levels, especially in the mid 7500s area.
Okay.
So as we do correct, we're going to see how it basically treats certain of these trend lines that is
Mm-hmm.
basically super easy to break through.
So that's a great point. I want to point out as you were talking, there is 7,500 is support. It was a prior peak right here. So that's going to be support if this fails. If we're going to, so big Chonis, that while you were talking, I marked up the chart a little bit. So a couple things to watch here. If we're going to want to know if this will be continuing or not. And a couple signs we can watch for. Early signs that the rally is failing. And, you know, so here's what we can watch. On the on-balance volume, there's a little bit of a support here. It's already been tested twice. You see that on the on-balance volume? On the RSI, so we can cool off a little bit and then maybe bounce off like 71 RSI, right? For a continuation. If that fails, that might be an early sign though. So you watch the RSI, watch the OBV, probably those two things to see if this continues. It is an ascending triangle. Bitcoin, I mean, it's really fascinating. I mean, the 1 hour we were clearly we were in a bearish pennant. Until this broke out. I'm going to pull up on the screen for everybody. We were in a bearish pennant pattern. It's a little bit more clear on the 4 hour, and I know these visual aids help, but we were in a bearish pennant. It's basically a bearish continuation pattern. But you and I in our last show, Big Jonas, we touched on the fact that with all this sideways that we were seeing, there just weren't enough bears anymore. Right, we were kind of running out of bears. Didn't we kind of touch base on that?
Yeah, we were talking about the theory that once basically it's shown several times that no one wants to sell below 6,500 area,
Yeah.
and we did that 3 times, then that was a good sign to the market that said, hey, we have some stability here. And that's where you started seeing that accumulation over the the days. That accumulation was small, but it was so hard to watch the chart and to see how many red candles would take out a lot of nice volume bars, except it wouldn't break all the way down. And so you basically saw this kind of loop-to-loop with putting in slightly higher highs, and then it would fall through. So there wasn't a lot of conviction in terms of the short-term price. But the longer we stay in a certain price range, the more bullish that next move can become.
Doesn't that depend on the context? If that's in the context of an uptrend or a downtrend?
Well, that's a
right.
Good point.
If you're in an uptrend and then you just start going sideways, maybe that's not a good thing.
If we were going to break down, I think we would have seen something like an equally as strong candle. But we decided to break up this time. So you're right. Sideways action basically should signal that there's a big move coming.
That the prior, what it really should signal actually is that the prior trend is losing momentum.
Yes, that's fair to say for sure.
You know, there's no way to know where this volume came from. Like, it's like, how do you know? It's like, oh, how come we didn't know who's going to win the Super Bowl tomorrow? Like, you don't know beforehand, right? So it's like we see this pattern. You know, I bet on Twitter all day we're going to get questions like, you know, how come you didn't see it coming, or why didn't you see it coming, or what did I miss in the chart, right? It's never, there's nothing you missed in the chart. Like, until it happens, then you don't, it doesn't, there's no way to know it's going to happen until it happens.
Let's talk about where that volume could have come from.
Soros.
Well, it was Soros and the cartel.
Peter Soros and Jimmy Soros The two guys who own the deli down the street. Well, go ahead.
Well, it's the thing, like, this wasn't money of on, you know, people that were just thinking about dipping their toe into crypto, or were planning on opening an exchange. You know, this was money. This was money ready to go. This was fiat ready to buy, finger on the button. You know, and to have that kind of influx in such a quick time, this was basically, I don't want to say planned, but basically there was a plan for this move, that if this move happened, if certain indicators were showing that big money was flowing in, that very quickly you could throw a lot of fiat into the market. And we talk about, you know, timing, when things seem to happen. We've had this debate about, is Sunday or the weekends.
I hate that debate. I always tell you every day, I hate that, man. We're hanging out and you're like, well, it's a Friday, which means normally this. And I'm like, I swear, you never know. I hate those rules where it's like, because this, then this. I hate those.
Well, let me ask you this then. Why? And again, we obviously agree that crypto is worldwide, so there really is no specific time zone, except there is every day there's a new daily, you know, candle put in. But in the United States, you know, this move happened at 7 a.m. on the East Coast. The West Coast was still asleep. So what does that mean? Does that mean that this money was put in at a certain time to catch people off guard?
Who knows? You can't look at one data point and extrapolate a conclusion that needs 5 data points. Like, that's just one. It's just like, you can speculate all day because you're bored, but it doesn't mean you're going to be able to come up with an intelligent answer. You just don't know where the volume came from, where they live, were they in their pajamas or in a suit? Did they have coffee? Was there milk or sugar in their coffee? Who cares?
They were probably in their pajamas and in their suits. That's what most of them are.
I don't know. I mean,
I think that's a variable that, you know, it should be thought about, at least, just to maybe have a sense of, like, why certain things happen when they happen. It's kind of interesting.
I think it's too dangerous, because you try to assume that because something happened in the past, it will happen again, and you may not even know. You may reach. It's really easy to reach a bad conclusion. I think you're better off tracking momentum and how social mood and everything. You're better off. That's your best barometer of something like that, whether it be a bullish or bearish sentiment, whether or not be like money flow weak or strong, right? You're going to hear about it because the echoes of that from other people. You see what I'm saying? You're best off to listen through other people who are also looking for all those things you think you're looking for.
Well, you brought up the term social mood, and that's a very interesting point, because I believe we've had a lot of positive news coming out on Bitcoin over the past couple days, few weeks. You know, everything from regulators, you know, trying to come to choices and decisions, a lot of very bold predictions from a lot of Bitcoin people, and a lot of the thought that we're moving into this kind of new stage of we're kind of out of the hysteria phase into this more of like a price discovery phase.
You know what? It feels like there's been enough misery now that like the average person feels like they're more okay with it.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
If you're buying into something that is down 70-80% from where it was a few months ago, you're probably willing to either take that risk and possibly even keep your money in there for a little bit longer, and see if you can actually see if these things can grow. I think a lot of that has contributed to some of the altcoin run we're seeing, and some of the Momo in there, where there's this sense that, at least for now, there's been a bottoming. But the way these charts have been set up, it's almost like, you know, not surprising, with a little money flow, these charts look pretty good.
Yeah. I think that's right, and I think it's been quite a nice run for altcoins. It's been interesting to track which ones are moving with and against Bitcoin. So it's a really weird. It's a fun and it's a hard game to. It's like trying to put frogs in a barrel, because like you never know which alt's gonna pop, and then it starts popping, and then you get caught chasing it, and then you FOMO'd in at the all-time high. So
yeah, you know, the weekly chart you just had up there, that looked pretty good. You know,
you want me to go back to that?
Yeah, like a bigger perspective on kind of where we're at.
Well, I was just looking at RSI. I was trying to see if there was like historical. I saw right here. Look at this line. Look at right back here, like there. So look at where we are. There's actually a kind of interesting historical RSI support right here, and you'll see it on your screen. So I just found that to be kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the weekly chart shows that we may have found some support there. We've basically been in this range for, you know, a few weeks now. That's positive. You know, the stock RSI is very oversold still at this moment. Kind of did that double dip there. You know, slight uptick in the OBV. The RSI, you know, held that support there. That's very good. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of positive signs that say the weekly could find some stability in it, at least in the short term. But the thing actually I'm seeing in your weekly that really sticks out is where all that money flow was, you know, compared to kind of where the spike was there. It's interesting.
Oh, the recent volume.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think there's a lot of volume here, and there's a lot of negotiation going on between the bulls and the bears. I mean, clearly, if you look at the weekly chart, we're clearly at some historic price support area. I mean, you had these 3 weeks in a row right here. So there's a little bit of support, and we're perhaps seeing that play itself out. Let's move on, you know, to we've kind of beat Ethereum to a dead horse here. I'm sorry, Bitcoin rather. So you know, obviously it's impressive, and like I just told you folks before, I think we're in an ascending triangle in the 1 hour. I gave you some support areas to watch for to see if Bitcoin does continue. What did I do it on the 4-hour chart or the 1 hour? I did it on the 4-hour chart where you have some support areas. So check that 4-hour chart to watch it to see if it continues. Ethereum, Big Chonis. And oh, by the way, folks, my good friend Big Chonis, we're on the 10K watch here for followers. He's just crossed 9K. And he's, you know, like that Dow 19, 20, 21, 22,000, you know, hat. We're going to get you that 10K follower hat, Big Chonis.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Real soon.
I kind of following on Twitter. I'm truly humbled. And, you know, I want to keep putting out quality content that I feel can, you know, educate and inform.
You know what I like is you get a lot of engagement on your tweets. There's a lot of people who like to respond, and they think you're doing a really good job, and so do I. You can find me at Big Cheds, of course, on Twitter. I don't have up the blog, but I'm not sure if you are aware, I did write what is called the Complete Beginner's Guide to Cryptocurrency Trading. So if you're just getting started, you definitely want to check that out. It is at chedstrading.blogspot.com, and you guys will love that. So Ethereum, my friend, and I am Big Cheds. That was Big Chonis. Ethereum, let's see. So it looks pretty good too. That's the 4-hour. We do have the spinning top on the 4-hour, but it had one before and it continued, so it's still kind of in a continuation pattern. So, you know, like Bitcoin, it's still kind of chugging along, but you would actually expect Ethereum to perhaps bounce soon, just from a 1-hour standpoint. If it's uptrending, it should bounce soon. What do you think, Big Chonis?
Well, you know, you mentioned the spinning top. I totally agree with that. I thought several hours ago there was a hanging man that was put in.
4-hour or 1? What are we looking at? Where?
On the 4-hour there, yeah. Several candles ago, there was a hanging man there.
There was, right there. Boom.
Right through that. Yep. So just shows you the power of that move there. And the volume bars are just amazing there. A lot of really intense buying. Yeah. But you notice that on the 4-hour, you know, for the first time there, we're now inside the upper Bollinger Band on 2 consecutive candles there.
That's true. So that's a little cool off. That's a little cool off.
Down there. You know, you can see it in the volume as well. The last 2 candles been red, and you're kind of seeing that in the volumes kind of slowing down there. This is a rip. I mean, this one ripped. It had the lowest RSI a couple weeks ago, fall. I remember we were commenting that on one of our shows that it was so low. It had never actually been that low.
On daily.
On daily. So
16. It was 16.
Yeah. That's ridiculously low, and it had a nice bounce combined with when Bitcoin and Litecoin had their nice bounce around then as well. Retested that area a few times, but boy did it have that long consolidation period that allowed it to really rocket ship, and it's been leading the way ever since.
So Ethereum's been leading the way.
Ethereum in terms of price action, absolutely. You know, it was basically the strongest one a couple days ago before we had this big spike up. You kind of see it in the volume, in the percentages. I remember it was riding about 5% better than Litecoin was about
Wow.
4 days ago. But, you know, listen, the indicators are the indicators. We're very topped off on the 4-hour. We're really topped off on the histogram, you know, the stock RSI, and of course the RSI there. The daily does suggest that it could have a little more room in it, even though we're now finally
The
topped
daily
off.
suggests we have more room.
Just because of this oomph and how the RSI really hasn't topped off yet. I think
RSI.
in this correction here, which it should correct, it needs to correct, it could push that next push up to
You're right.
550 again. So there's a little left to take there on the daily, but let's face it, this has been an epic move. It needs to correct in a proper way if it wants to kind of push higher. And again, depending upon what Bitcoin does still is going to be a determinant in that factor.
You know, you're right, but I actually wouldn't be surprised if it goes to like 700. I know that's absolutely crazy to say, but I was just looking back, and we pointed this out last time. We had the stochastics topping off right as the price was hitting the upper Bollinger. Had like, I mean, it just had another big run after it. So you never, I mean, you never know. You know, I also wouldn't be surprised if it goes down to 400 from here. So, but you're right. It actually, the RSI does suggest that if there's any kind of power, it could keep going. So that's a good point. And there is some nice volume here. So I will admit that. Litecoin, man. Remember we were talking about Litecoin at like 113 on the last show. And what did I say? I was like, I said it's like if you buy here at 114, it's got to feel pretty good, right? Something like that.
Yeah, it was like I hate it at 14, but I love it at 120, but I don't want to buy it at 109.
Oh my God, it's such a mind mess, right? Trying to.
How many times has Litecoin gone from 110 to 125 or 130 in this move? It happened like 3 times. 110 area, we were talking about how it basically flatlined there. And we were trying to figure out what does that mean, you know, and we were basically saying, is the selling exhausted now? Are people refusing to sell anything under 110?
Right.
And because of that fact, you had a lot of that accumulation kind of bubbling up, and it went up. You know, it didn't do as interesting too. It actually had a weaker pop. Ether led the way. Bitcoin was definitely a close second, and then Litecoin was third. And it was kind of interesting. It was definitely weaker of them. I wonder if basically it had something to do with, I don't know. I mean, there's a couple, you know, things about the chart that showed, you know, it could basically was a little overbought to begin with. I don't know. But it kind of found it curious that Litecoin was the weaker of the three, almost a sense as Bitcoin and Ether are more seen closer together. And then Litecoin, even though it's part of the big three there, is kind of seen as more of an alt. And it also lost a spot in the market cap currently, I think to EOS. So that's kind of interesting.
It's just above it. Maybe refresh. No, I think it's just back above it. Looks like it.
Bounce again, yeah.
Oh, it's close. Yeah, it's back above it. Yeah, because EOS has been on like a crazy ripper. Crazy
rip, yeah. So that's interesting that we're actually seeing a little weakness divergence in Litecoin here. I wonder if that will tell something.
Look at the 4-hour candles. Do you see anything that's kind of a little bit scary there, or what?
On the 4-hour, let's see here. I mean, yeah, we're really topped off on the RSI, the stock,
what about
everything.
The candles, though? Look at those candles. Anything?
Double spinning tops there?
Yeah, or even like a hanging man and a spinning top, and now we're doing double spinning top with a hanging man. I mean, it's kind of...
it's curving over.
Yeah, it's curving back over. You're not getting... It's not like the prior consolidation period, these 3 candles here, or even these 3. I mean, it's looking like it's running out of strength in the short term. The daily actually is still really oversold, Big Chonis, at least, I mean, compared to the other two. You're only at like a 48 RSI for Litecoin.
Yeah, and that's kind of showing that the weakness is there in the sense that the market wasn't super anxious to put their money all into Litecoin as they were bullishness with Ether and Bitcoin and a bunch of the alts. I don't know what that means. I don't know if this is going to be a lagger or if this is just going to build a stronger base as it slowly moves here and has less of this impulse move here. It'll be interesting to see, as well as what Bitcoin corrects, hopefully in this move here, how Litecoin also corrects, if it will fall quicker comparatively, that'll be something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it really will be. I guess Bitcoin looks a little better, but they're both all of them are kind of coming to a pivot here within the next, I think, 8 hours. I think that this trend is going to change in 8 hours. Why don't we take a look at the depth chart and we can see kind of maybe you can walk us through if you're seeing any kind of strength or weakness or anything that jumps out to you.
Yeah, it's absolutely, Cheds. Let's pull up the depth chart on Bitcoin.
What are my settings before you begin? What do you want me to be at here?
We'll start with the dollar aggregation, which is fine. And, you know, the price action has just been great. I mean, we're seeing constant buying here. This order book looks, at least the past day or so, looks like it reminds me of when we have been in our past uptrends. We're seeing constant buying pressure. Any selling almost was bought into again with more buying pressure.
So EMA 12s.
Yeah, like you have a lot of the bids basically lined up. It's really nice there. The hourly, I mean, is that move there is nuts, and you can kind of see how way outside that standard deviation is. And basically, you saw that very first candle there. You see how long it basically took for it to touch. The orange EMA 12 there on the 1 hour chart you have there, good. And then basically now it's riding it as support. This probably will break down and it will basically try and find support where the blue one is now, currently at 79.12.
Wait, so you don't think the EMA 12, you don't think the orange line will hold?
I don't think the orange line will hold. I think once it breaks, it basically is going to break and find support at the blue, which absolutely still keeps this chart in play. You know, I think I've just seen this so many times where it's basically leveling out. I'd be amazed if this, on the hourly here, if this candle, which we have 20 minutes left in, I'd be amazed if it turns into a green. But, Bitcoin's been super bullish, so this could basically be kind of a resting area here for another push. I'm not seeing it on the indicators there. I think this will basically fall a little bit to find a correction point. The thing is this, moves outside the standard deviation like this don't last that long. So on GDAX, that hourly chart is like crazy outside the lines there. The 6 hour, also shows something very similar, how far the price action is above the orange line there and the blue line. From a GDAX perspective, that's somewhere as pretty high as you will see it in those circumstances. So that's interesting there. Now the depth chart, if you want to zoom all the way out here, a couple things I've noticed that have been a lot different compared to the depth chart we've been looking at the past several days. This is a lot less bearish than it's been, for sure. It was actually the slope of the red, the way where it's almost trying to put a wall up. That's completely changed. You can see the green is much more focused in its buying pressure. It's like an attack with swords, and the red now has become a wall of defenders trying to stop the push, the bullish buying pressure.
Big Chonis, are you going to do like a basic instructional video to explain this to people?
Yes, I'm working on something to put out, talking a lot about, some of the indicators I use, some of the charting information I use, and GDAX, and which is how I do a lot of my trading as well. There's definitely a lot of them out there, but I kind of want to see if I can put my own perspective on things and put something out that's educational.
Okay. All right.
So I'm short term here. I'm definitely seeing a lot of more bullishness in this depth chart. The depth chart that really stuck out to me actually was the Litecoin depth chart. This was pretty bearish about a week ago. It's not bearish really at all right now. It's actually, I'd say it's more neutral. You can see basically...
Zoom out? Am I zooming out or what?
Yeah, zoom all the way out there on the Litecoin depth chart.
That's not too bad. That's not too bad.
I'm comparing this to what it's been like, but this is showing me that...
Do you have a screenshot?
What do you mean?
we should start to save those, for a reference.
Oh, well, that's a very good point, because yes,
Do you have a
this
tweet
is an example, I would
maybe?
say, of a not bearish, market sentiment right now. It almost feels like because of what I'm seeing here, the price point we're at now, give or take a few dollars, seems kind of firm and looks like it will hold. There's a lot of buying support under it, and this is definitely a big change there. I did look at the Ethereum one as well, because I felt this had been the most bearish. It's also changed quite a bit. It's a lot more bullish. The angle of the green has basically sloped a lot lower, which shows me a lot more buying pressure there. Slope of the red has risen, so it's acting more as a shield and less of a sword, if you will. So all three depth charts are definitely a lot more bullish than they have been. I wouldn't say it's a complete market reversal in any way. There is still bearishness in all three, but it's definitely a lot more neutral than it was bearish the way it was a few days ago.
Excellent. Excellent, folks. That was Big Chonis. He's on Twitter at Big Chonis. I am Big Cheds. Just to remind you guys, we're not advisors. We're just a couple friends. We like to talk crypto, and so we figured we'd go ahead and do that, record the conversation, for you guys, and hopefully it helps some people. We love the feedback. Apparently it is. You guys like to hear us debate things. We never agree. Like you're talking about a blue line. I see a gray line, Big Chonis, on GDAC, so we can't even agree on colors of lines. And that's what makes this a good show. Just real quick, couple alts that have some action. XRP is the top action. Ooh, wow, 8,500. Looks like XRP is ripping here. Let's take a little look. I bet some people are very happy. Oh yeah, okay. I'm gonna tweet this while you break it down. How's it looking here?
Let me pull it up here first.
Yeah, XRP here. So XRP is pretty nice. It's kind of breaking the top of the consolidation pattern. Had a recent bullish flag that just broke out of that. Now it's forming a new consolidation pattern.
Yeah, this is our third really nice green candle in a row here. Good buying pressure. Complete change basically in the slope of the angle here. Very nice movement here. We've ripped on Ripple for a while in terms of how many actual ripples are out there. It's quite a large number. Valuation has always been a big issue with Ripple. Its actual usefulness in its actual network has also come into question. But the fact that it keeps on being put in terms of a price perspective, especially on CNBC, where they include it in their Bitcoin, Ethereum prices as well. So they basically are showing, people that Ripple is part of the big boys and whatnot. And I think that's probably why you're seeing money
narrative. That's their narrative.
That's a narrative, because if there's a surge in Bitcoin, there's a sense that Ripple is part of that family there. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of the money flow in as well.
So do you see the bull flag that we just broke in the 4-hour? I'm going to go.
Yeah,
I'm going to pull it up for the folks. Yep.
Impressive bull flag there. It's peaked above your trend line there. That's very positive. On the daily, I mean, the RSI is getting topped off. The stock RSI is topped off as well. OBV strong. So, we're definitely hitting a little resistance area eventually on this move here. It's been a really nice move. That first little pump there you have on the 4-hour got sold into pretty hard there. So, this is one of those coins that can sell out pretty quickly if there's a market sentiment change, but it's definitely, flowing like a lot of the alts are now with some nice price action.
Okay. You got it, brother. I'm just trying to draw this flag, but it's messing with me, so I'll move on. But that's the flag that it recently broke out of, and it's in a really nice move right now. So I think that is impressive. Congratulations if you're holding. And next we have TRX is having a big volume move here. TRX, but it's still at 500. It's not doing anything. So TRX has a lot of volume, but it's not doing anything, Big Chonis.
Yeah, it's interesting. Is this an example of accumulation at a certain price point? We're kind of doing the sideways move here. The volume.
Go ahead.
falling kind of bearish wedge flag there. Actually, it's a bearish falling flag, or sorry, a bullish flag there. I basically see
On what?
on TRX
on the 4 hour.
On the 4 hour. Yeah, it's definitely kind of a falling wedge there.
Yep.
OBV is steady. Yeah, you know, I mean, it's tricky because it definitely hasn't popped like the rest of them, but it's definitely in an uptrend. I mean, it's putting in higher lows. The Bollingers are tightening.
Yep. That's good.
Press action's tight. Yeah, I mean,
could be a bull pennant. It could be a bull pennant, right? On the daily.
Yeah, at the daily. Like, why wouldn't it be assumed that this won't pop at some point? It definitely seems like it's setting up for that. On the daily, you kind of see, you know, a trend line forming there, kind of holding above at that first bottom, that sell off there and hold, and now kind of where it seems to be moving to right now. You get a nice little volume push, and I wouldn't see why this won't push higher.
Yeah, I guess you could call it a bullish pennant, maybe in the daily. I mean, you definitely go that way. I was looking at while you were talking on the 4 hour. I am detecting some bullish divergence. See the uptrending on balance volume?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that's kind of something to keep an eye on. Let's do one more. Oh geez, it's like the same ones every time, but whatever. XVG. It's still right there. So it's kind of topped off. This one's I don't know. I think this one's getting dangerously close to sell the news. So and I feel like the momentum is slowly fading in this one. What do you think?
Well, listen, we talked about it's very important how you get there. So this one has taken 2 weeks to get up to this point here. It's put in a lot of bases of support. A lot of people have entry points along the way, which is why I think you're seeing a lot of this stability holding this over 1,000 Satoshi range, which is good. A lot of indicators though on the daily are suggesting it's been overbought. The RSI has been, you know, in the overbought zone for quite a while, just showing how bullish it's been. And is basically holding that 70 RSI as support right now. I think if you break through that, you're going to basically see that correction that is probably needed if this wants to continue.
Yep, I agree. Well, I mean, if this was just going right, but Big Chonis, my point is, if this is just going right along, we could draw support levels and resistance and expect it to kind of interact normally. But you've got a big catalyst coming in a few days, right? And that's going to either make it go up or down, but probably down because those gains are built in.
Yeah, once that news drops, you know, it will happen. It'll be out there, and I think we're going to see potentially that sell the news situation. But you know, who knows? I think, you know, once Bitcoin does start to correct, it will be interesting to see from this move here.
Yeah.
It will be interesting to see how it corresponds to the alts.
Right. Do they go up or they down? How do they?
Right. Are we going to see some divergence? You know, it has to be stated that a lot of money flow is flowing into these alts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not into Bitcoin. So a lot of this kind of alt gains has been money flow to them. Then you throw in the 10% rise in Bitcoin. Basically, you give every alt a raise, if you will. So that's basically helping that as well. So you're seeing that money flow into alts, not flowing as much into Bitcoin. That's interesting. And I think, you know, the money is there. You can clearly see from this move. We talked about it in our previous show, you know, is Bitcoin dead? Are we still falling? Where are we going here? The money is clearly there. The big money is there. And through the year, the more people are going to be signing up to exchanges and becoming part of this movement is kind of only bring positive things. This is a moment here where you basically have to be smart, though. Like, are we out of this downtrend? We really haven't broken through major resistance areas. We still have to climb past, you know, 84, 8,500. If we're able to hit that, there's a pretty big wall there in terms of the chart. So we're going to see if we can break through that, maybe test 9. These are possibilities, but we've also seen how quickly Bitcoin can sell off and catch people off guard if you argue that the shorts were way too overbought, which caused a short squeeze, which allowed this massive price movement. Situations like that don't happen too often.
What do you call that? A situation?
You heard that? It's an interesting situation.
So who's a what's a?
To say the least there. So yeah, there's just a lot of price action happening here where if it can move up that quickly, surely there could be a pretty big dip, but this needs to correct.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Sure.
Go ahead. No,
well, just that we're seeing some slight weakness in terms of the volume momentum pushing now.
Yep.
Things feel a little tired, but boy, the money flow is there now. We'll see if it can continue.
That's beautiful. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry to interrupt. We're just having fun talking here. What do you make, Big Chonis? What do you make of the fact that both BTC USD longs and shorts look weak? Like, it's kind of interesting. You know, normally they're kind of inverse to each other.
All right, so this is a great question because I've been looking at this a lot, trying to get a sense of where the sentiment is. Mm-hmm. So we're basically seeing longs really kind of not sure what to do. You know, the past few hours, they've been kind of selling off a little bit. You know, you're seeing that the shorts basically stop the bleed. You can clearly see they've basically leveled out. You know, there's probably a lot of gun-shy people now. I mean, you had a lot of people got wrecked in this short squeeze. I mean, there was hundreds of millions of dollars lost on this bet. So a lot of smart people were able to make good money on this, but a lot of other people got wrecked, and that's unfortunate because you don't want to see that. One thing I do find interesting, though, in the shorts is that there's a huge gap on the 4-hour where it just fell through the floor and then through the basement quickly. Most of the time, gaps like filled. So I wouldn't be surprised if you kind of see that gap fill at some point as the shorts begin to rise again, putting downward pressure again on the price of Bitcoin.
Very interesting. Very interesting. We never have gaps in crypto.
Well, that's a very good point because it never ends. So you're not going to have that.
This is fun. It's like, oh, a gap. I haven't seen a gap in a while. This is kind of fun.
That just shows the magnitude of how big that squeeze was, where the money flow was so epic that shorts didn't even know what hit them, and that's an amazing move there. And I think it will be filled at some point.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think it's a great point. So, if you're kind of just hanging out there and you're not in the market yet, what do you think? Would you advise people kind of just hang out and wait and see at this point?
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of money on the sidelines now. You know, I didn't play this move particularly. I felt it was just so. Personally, thank you. It was so tough to kind of figure out. I thought there was more of a risk for downside, at least in the short term. I'm still bearish. I mean, I still believe that there's a chance we can basically, after a correction, try and reach to 8,500 again, maybe get a little higher. It's definitely possible. But I think it's just not ready yet. And if it does get rejected and starts falling back through, it could fall pretty quickly, and that could be the setup for kind of what we're eventually waiting for, is that epic drop basically to those all-time lows we hit in February, and see how the market responds to that. So just trade safe, don't go overextended, and play with your stop losses as well.
It's good advice. That's good advice. I think yeah, there's strength right now, but I would call it uncertain strength as well. And I like to kind of wait and see. You know, maybe we do have another big dip ahead. It's hard to know, but for the meanwhile, if you want to be micro, I would just watch. I would just watch this ascending triangle pattern on the 4-hour and watch the RSI